Thank you all very much. Please find somebody with a green shirt and give them a hug. Putting on conferences like this is tough. It's hard. It's a lot of work. It's all volunteer, and they deserve our love and attention. As well, we were talking about the sponsors downstairs. Some of this stuff doesn't happen without sponsors. Please go visit their booths, steal their swag. We got all sorts of good stuff downstairs, stickers and pens and all sorts of good stuff that we can take home to our kids too. Highly, highly recommend that. Who's local? Oh, wow. Because I know we got some friendly faces from around elsewhere. But look at this room. This is phenomenal. We've got an obvious hunger for security conversations. How many of you are in legit hardcore cybersecurity related kind of job functions? About half. That's cool. That's cool. So there's an awful lot of people. Okay, every time I put together one of these presentations, I kind of have usually something that's ticking me off about the world. And earlier this year, it was all about a few things. A whole lot of us in security are burned out. A whole lot of people that are trying to get into security are freaking out because they're trying to figure out how they can fit in. They don't understand how they can fit in. Then we have a whole bunch of news, and the news is always really cool around DEF CON and Black Hat time too, of all the horrible things that are available to us in the world. Everybody keeps on getting popped. Ransomware isn't even a newsworthy thing anymore unless it's really big, because it's just the usual daily source of business. So that's why I came up with this little conversation here that, oh, here we go. Oh yeah, who am I? I put the alphabet soup behind there for some reason. I'm not really sure why. Making a mess since 1976. You can dox me. It's all good. I don't know, whatever. If you like what I have to say, I'm the Director of Technology at X10 Technologies. If you don't like what I have to say, the opinions of the speaker are not necessarily representative of his employer. In the news, earlier this year especially, I know Justin had one out earlier. Who's got one of these? Who's playing with these? You're more than welcome to come and play with mine. This is a Flipper Zero for anybody who has not played with one. They can be a little challenging to get, but this is an interesting toy that has made some headlines and has made a whole lot of videos. Has anybody seen videos of people doing naughty things with them? Yeah, what kind of things have you, what have you seen? Yeah. Oh yeah, opening up doors. That's a good one. I like that. You're playing all my cards for me. That's good. What have you seen? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, there's some interesting things we can do with that for sure. Okay, people love scary stories. I tell the stories about the poltergeist in my house because for whatever reason, we just blame all the things that go weird in my house on a particular poltergeist named Brent. And my kids and I have all sorts of these things. If anybody wants to play with the NFC tags too, I've got a whole bunch. You can get them for 40 for $10 on Amazon. And you can put little codes and things on them, and they have little backings. Once you know what these are too, you'll start seeing them everywhere. Guard services use them so that they'll stick them in certain places, and guards, when they do their rotations, have to use their phone and click on them to show that they're actually doing the rounds, not sleeping under the conference table. But we have little messages from our poltergeist named Brent in our house. And when we started showing my mother this, my mother is a lovely, lovely lady. She started, kind of freaking. She doesn't really understand technology. She doesn't really understand what all of these things are. And she started, my kids showed her how to use NFC tools on her own phone. She started communicating with the dead. When I started telling the stories about the weird things that this poltergeist does in my house that we blame on the poltergeist, of the ice maker doesn't work for whatever reason. Yeah, it was Brent. The lights flickering, and telling this story around a campfire, and just, I was tired and kind of half asleep and telling the story, and then realizing that all these people were freaking out. Some people love scary stories, but some people get really freaked out by them. The idea of the Flipper Zero is the same thing. Oh, I opened a lock too. Hold on. Half the stuff you see on YouTube about flipper zeros in particular are mostly garbage. Let's see if this works. It's going to be loud. So you can see a Schlage lock. Yeah. And then I'm going to point my flipper zero at it. I don't know why I have Halloween or Christmas decorations out, whatever. Okay, kind of cool, eh? I'm going to show you the dark side of this. Oh, there's my 16-year-old. You could just see her feet. She came in with the assist. I've seen an awful lot of videos on the internet where someone is opening a car door, someone is doing something with flipper zero. You know what there's even more dangerous stuff out there than a flipper zero. Flipper zero is a fantastic toy. It's like an Arduino for hackers. It's great stuff. How many of you have tap enabled on your credit card or your debit card? Okay, it would be breaking all sorts of federal laws. But there are risk equations that we make for ourselves that are more dangerous than anything we can really do with a flipper zero. And that's one of them, is things like tap on a card. Oh, let me get to the next slide somehow. All right. Here is the crux of my angst from like April, May this year. I think might even go back to Aristotle. I never did find a source of this quote. If anybody knows it, by all means, feel free to Google it and correct me while I'm up here on stage. That's awesome. I like that. What we don't understand, we fear. What we fear, we hate. What we hate, we seek to destroy. This is a universal human thing. Because all of you here are cybersecurity aware people, that you are cybersecurity enthusiasts, that you're hacker enthusiasts, that you love the concepts of puzzles and things that we can noodle with and break and find new ways to do things that we shouldn't be able to do with things. We're a little different. But you know what? We scare the ever-loving crap out of normal people. We scare them. And, well, what's the flip side of this? Canada's stolen car crisis, Justin, allegedly made worse by flipper zero. Here's why the device is now banned. Did the ban ever actually happen? I never followed through with that. I just know that there was an awful lot of politicians who were so scared of the little dolphin on my screen that they said, you know what? The Tamagotchi for hackers, for those of us who are old enough to remember the Tamagotchi, that they wanted to ban it. They said, uh-oh, this is a bad thing. Cars are getting stolen, and we got to ban the flipper zero. Really? When it's easier to get in through the window with a brick? Are we banning bricks? No, we're not banning bricks. And so, what do we, as the security community, then do? Canada's flipper zero ban. Once again, politicians show you they know nothing about technology. Maybe, maybe not, whatever. But you know what really helps get people on our side? Let's mock them. Yeah. So what are the stakes? This is where I started to get really concerned about the world. By the way, you don't have to agree with me either. That's the great thing about BSides, is that we can throw a whole bunch of things out to the universe, and none of us are getting paid. So you are more than welcome to disagree with me, and that's fine too. But when I look at what the stakes can be here, does anybody know who this quote comes from? And eventually I was caught. I was sent to prison for 5 years. 8 months was in solitary confinement because a federal prosecutor told the judge that if they allowed me to have access to the phone while in prison, that I could whistle into the phone and communicate with a modem at NORAD and actually launch an ICBM. Who said Kevin Mitnick? A few of you said Kevin Mitnick. Gold star. Gold star. Absolutely. So he wrote a, love him, hate him, I don't care. The book Ghost in the Wires is an incredibly compelling read. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But it talks about this guy who was one of the original, I guess, high-profile hackers who was hacking phone systems and doing funny things with phone systems. And the people that didn't understand what he was about, or what hacker culture is about, or what security culture is about, put him in solitary confinement for 8 months. It's pretty gross stuff. A little closer to home, and this one has been, I don't know if you can see it in the back because of the stage. 19-year-old in Nova Scotia asks for a Freedom of Information request on something from his provincial government, and discovered that if he incremented the number in the address bar, he got another record. So he was like, oh, this is the stupidest portal ever. So he just wrote a little get script, and then he went to school, and it downloaded the entire copy of everything on the Freedom of Information portal for the province of Nova Scotia. What do we know this as? Yeah, insecure direct object reference, SQL injection. There's all sorts of ways we can talk about this. But at the end of the day, this is a privacy breach. This is a poorly designed system that allowed somebody access to more things than it should have. How do we think the government of Nova Scotia responded? Well, charged over privacy breach. They black vanned his little sister on her way home from school. They tossed the contents of his kitchen. They cut open mattresses, and this is the police services who are doing this stuff. So what are the stakes? We got a whole lot of people who are scared of security people, who are scared of security researchers, who are scared of technologists. And this goes back. FUD? You know the acronym FUD? Let me hear it. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Thank you. Supposedly FUD's dead, by the way. We haven't used FUD in a decade to sell cybersecurity, have we? Except we still kind of do. The infrastructure team just won't listen to me. How are we talking to the infrastructure team? If you're running a vulnerability management program and we go, well, you got to patch all your vulnerabilities or we're going to get hacked. All our stuff's going to get owned and it's going to make us look stupid and we're going to be broken. That's fear. When it finally blows up, it's all on you. I've been telling you for 6 months you got to fix that web portal that can then shove 4,000 documents to a Nova Scotia teenager. Uncertainty? Stupid company keeps on making the same stupid mistakes. Yeah, we all say that. I say that too. Right? But what is that? That's doubting ourselves. Do we feel like we are making an impact? Do we feel like we are able to take the knowledge we have about security items and give that to people and make a difference and help us make a difference in people's lives and people's businesses? Every day just gets worse. Said that right at the beginning. Why isn't ransomware in the news anymore? Unless it's something really big, it's because it's happening all the time. Speaking of time, I just want to take a look at the time. Oh, I have plenty of time. What other soundtracks have we got? What else are we saying? What else are we hearing? All sorts of good things. Technical risk. Okay, if we're talking about technical risk in our organizations, if you've taken your CISSP, if you're studying for your CISSP, this will be on the exam. What are our elements? I'm looking for four things. Our technical elements of risk. When we say cybersecurity risk, what are we looking for? I would love to hear it. It's typically, what do we start with? An asset, right? And an asset might have a vulnerability. You're playing my cards. I love it. Thank you. What else might we have? A vulnerability needs to be what? Oh, a vulnerability needs to be exposed to whom or what? Yes. Wow. Did you guys study? An asset plus a vulnerability plus an exposure plus a threat actor. I like that. What are we missing? Are we missing anything? That's another question I'd like to ask. If we have an asset with a vulnerability, but there's no exposure, is there risk? If we have an asset of vulnerability and exposure, but there's no threat actor, Right, the latest, there's a Windows-related vulnerability that came out shockingly just after DEF CON that is still not patchable. But we also don't understand that there's anything in the wild. Is this a risk? There's all sorts of things that we have to put in there. The big ones that I feel are always missing. Why is this important? What's the context? We beat our heads against the wall all the time. Nothing keeps getting better. It keeps on getting worse. I can't get the infrastructure team to patch. I can't even get us all on the same version of Windows, et cetera, et cetera. But why is this important? What's the context? We miss this sometimes. Moving into the concepts of enterprise risk, and I love this elevation. This language helps us with some of that context. The ISO 31000 definition of risk. If you heard Tim McCreet talking a couple weeks ago here, he would have told you all about the ISO 31000 definition of risk, and he is absolutely right. The effect of uncertainty on objectives. But uncertainty of what? Do we know what our businesses do? Do we know when we're poking at things, even as a red teamer, what the importance or the objectives of the company that we're poking at are? It becomes a little more effective for us to start talking about that language. Anybody who's working with project managers, I love project managers. They get stuff done all the time, and they know risk. Uncertainty measured by probability and impact. You put it in a nice little grid, and you can map out your 5x5 or your 3x3, and you can say, oh my goodness, this is a big risk, or this is not a big risk. If you have a high probability risk but of low impact, how much do we care? How much should we care? Is that up to us to make that decision? The friction point. How many of you are working with this? If it ain't broke, don't touch it. Yes, all of us are working with this. Why? Because a whole lot of IT professionals have spent their entire careers just making stuff that doesn't fall down. And if we touch it, and it's highly complex, many bolt-ons, it might fall down. And God help us if we do that on a Friday afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Whoops. What's the cybersecurity answer to this? Everything should be assumed to be broken at all times. We need to be touching everything constantly. Right? So this becomes a really significant friction point between the security professionals and the IT professionals. When we're talking about things like the cuckoo's egg, anyone who's read the Clifford Stoll book, it's all about this. It's all about, the security guy is the bad guy. My buddy Michael Santarcangelo says it all the time. They hear cyber and they hear spider and they say kill it with fire. So are we looking to make an impact, or should we be looking to make influence? Is there a difference? Probably. Something that, and this is where I start to, I've been around for a long time. I've been doing cybersecurity for a very long time. This is the first job I've had now. I started 3-4 weeks ago where cybersecurity isn't in my job title. And I'm working now as more of a business leader, which is really exciting and cool because we're seeing this transition now of people who used to be IT people become cybersecurity people. People who used to be business leaders become CISOs. And now we're seeing people who are cybersecurity focused doing more inside businesses. This is really cool. Tim would be another one. He was the Chief Information Security Officer and Chief Security Officer of the City of Calgary. Government of Alberta, and a few other places too. But security people, we matter. And if we can figure out how to deliver influence, getting people to do what we want them to do because they want to do it too, rather than impact, get our stuff fixed. Right? I just did the Microsoft AD audit. Here is your 3-inch binder of findings. Fix this shit. I got 1 S word in. You had 5. So I... That's my one. That's my one. I promise no F-bombs. Okay, maybe 1. When I was the general manager of cybersecurity at the Calgary airport, the first thing I did was go to the accountants and ask them, how do we make money? And they were a little shocked because the answer was, no one's ever asked us that from IT before. That's interesting. Okay. Then going through what are we actually worried about in this company? And we came up with 4 things. And this was me and a couple other business leaders and a couple of IT leaders. We got together and asked this question. What are we worried about in this business that we run? Operational stability, financial strength, brand and reputation, asset value. What do we typically focus on? You know, if we call things IT assets, we're all about, you know, these horrible Windows hosts and these stupid users who keep on clicking things, whatever. But how about we change the language a little bit to say, okay, but what about the operational stability of the organization? If there is a risk that comes in, a technical risk that comes in, how could that affect our operational stability, our ability to get people in the building, paying for parking, paying for lunch, and onto the plane? Or just getting the planes in and out. Financial strength, brand and reputation. If the big boards that we see all over the airports get popped, and all of a sudden there's naughty pictures on those things, how does that affect our brand and reputation? What does that matter to the organization? And of course, these things matter. Doesn't really sound like a cybersecurity function, though, I guess. But it helps us communicate the value of what we're doing. Another one that I did a little more recently with an organization, customer satisfaction, key risk area number 1. They have very, very expensive products, and they want to know that their customers are satisfied and will come back and spend another $250,000 on their products as often as possible. Continuity of operations, cash flow, and asset value loss. 2 different companies, 2 very different industries. This one is in transportation as well, but very, very different side of the business. Interestingly enough, those IT assets ranked 4th on the company's goals and objectives. How do we get there? How do we do that? Seek first to understand, then to be understood. I have a lot of quotes, apparently, and I added most of these in last night at about 9:30. Yeah, not that, yeah, about 15 minutes ago, no. The PCI pizza, really quick story. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. I'm going to try and fudge the names here. A lady named Amy came to me and said, Adam, I'm really concerned because I found a whole bunch of credit card numbers in our accounting database. I'm like, okay, that's bad. Any of you who have worked with the payment card industry or credit cards in general or sensitive data in general, knowing that credit card numbers and CVVs and names and postal codes sitting in clear text fields in an accounting database is probably a bad idea, right? She came to me, and so I asked her, Amy, did you tell the sales director about this? And she said, yeah. He said, it's by design. It's for customer satisfaction. Crap, using our words against us. So I went to the CFO. I said, okay, did you go to your boss? She's like, yeah, no one's listening to me. So I went to the CFO, and I said, okay, Dave, why? Why is this? And he goes, it's for customer satisfaction. I'm like, explain to me what this is about. I want to know that when our customers call, that they can get an order immediately, and we can get our product shipped out the door to them as quickly as possible. And I asked him, because he's an accounting professional, do you see any risk in this? And he goes, no, I do it all the time. My favorite pizza place, it's the same thing. I make a phone call, I say it's Dave, ship me my last order, and they just do it. And I don't have to get out my credit card, nothing. It's really convenient. So I said, dial them. And he did. So he stayed silent, because he's seen me work before too. So I said, hey, it's Dave at X company. You know how we had our pizza party last month? I would like to repeat that order today, please. And she said, awesome. Is 11:30 okay? And I said, yes, please. And she says, it's on its way. $700 worth of pizza later, we changed storing credit card information in the accounting database. So, did my best to understand what his issues were. Then I asked him to be understood. At no point in this do we have to agree either. That's okay. We'll get to a little bit of that in a few minutes. This one, anybody who's got, I see Justin's eyes light up. He knows. Old school Nortel phone systems. So I was working for a company that was, okay, many years ago, back before the internet was a thing and I still had cartilage in my knees. We were changing out all of their public service telephone network stuff, all their copper lines into SIP trunks. And SIP trunks are, well, does anybody even use SIP trunks anymore? We just make our phone calls on Teams. We had a system on there that would block people from making long-distance phone calls outside of Canada, and you had to punch in a special code, and it costs about $10,000 a year. And we lost that when we got the SIP trunks. So I went to the CFO, same guy, Dave, and I go, dude, we got a problem here because we're losing this functionality. And to add it in, it's going to cost us a whole lot extra. And he said to me, okay, Adam, let's do the math on that. I'm like, great. Making fun of my name, jerk. What was the last impact we had on this that made us put it in the first place? That was about 5 years ago. And what did that end up costing us? About $2,000. So you're telling me we need a $10,000 control, Adam, on a $2,000 once every 5-year problem? I'm like, oh, okay, we're probably good then. We have to learn too. I've asked this question a whole bunch of times. We want to be leaders in our industry. How much do we sometimes maybe suck at being led too, at listening, at understanding? Some techniques for collaboration. I touched on this a little bit before. Recognizing the complexity built into years of innovation and digital transformation. All of the people we are working with in IT and business have all been the victims of all sorts of people saying, you have to be disruptors. You have to be innovators. And no, you can't have any operating budget to maintain that old thing, and God help you if you turn it off. So we show up in their environment and we ask them to turn something off. I get it. So what do we do about that? We have to be reasonable. This word, reasonable, and I've been talking about this word for a decade now because I found it in a whole bunch of Canadian laws. Right? You go and look through the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Criminal Code of Canada, and you will find the word reasonable all over because it's something that can change. We don't say in our Canadian laws, you have to have AES 256 encryption on blah, blah, blah. No, we just say you have to have reasonable controls because reasonable can change over time. Reason can change depending on context of what we're trying to do. No, we don't need that extra $10,000 control for long distance charges, Adam, because it's not reasonable. That's also on your CISSP exam, by the way. Should your cost of your control ever eclipse the cost of the value of the asset you're protecting? Offer choice. Anyone who's done the ISACA risk course or any of the materials in that, I highly recommend it. If you've already done your CISSP and you're looking for something new to spend your company's education dollars on, ISACA risk is a phenomenal cert to go look at, a new way to look at approaching risk in technology controls, and I was expecting this to be higher. So when we identify a risk in an organization, we look at 4 options that we can put in front of people. We're going to reduce risk through compensating controls. Wow, you're looking at SSL 1.0 on this. We should probably increase that. That's adding compensating controls. We can eliminate risk. Hey, can you please turn off the Junos Pulse device that hasn't been patched in 10 years? That would be really nice. Right? That's eliminating risk. We can transfer risk. Okay, can any of us get cyber insurance anymore? I'm not sure. Like, it's pretty hard to get cyber insurance now. Or we can accept risk. Wow, that's an interesting one. We can say, yeah, there's $2,000 worth of risk, and the control option is going to be 10 grand. What is that going to take? We'll accept the risk, and hopefully we'll find it differently. How do we deliver value? Communicating with clarity. Describe the problem. The first question, especially in incident response. I've spent so much of my career in incident response, going into a room full of people who are panicking, and they're like, Adam, everything's broken. Fantastic. What's the problem? I don't know. Right? Describe the problem. The problem is we could have people doing naughty things with PCI data inside our environment. Describe the value of the remediation. Do you recognize what a PCI breach would cost this company? When I did the math on a privacy breach at the Calgary airport, it was about an $80,000 financial risk. When I did the math on a PCI breach at the Calgary airport, it was like an $80 million risk. The value of the remediation. What needs to be done to fix it now? Lots of interesting options that we can put on the table. Remember those 4 options. We can reduce risk, we can eliminate risk, we can transfer risk, or we can accept risk. When we give people those options and let them be part of that solution. For every problem, be prepared to help identify the solution. So many times in security, we say, you know what? I just popped all your stuff later, and then we drop the mic and we walk out of the room. Are we actually being willing to help identify the solutions? Your security professional should probably not be the person also implementing remediations. That's a bit of a conflict of interest, but we can help them define what the best options can look like. Oh, and when we go to that, that we get somebody saying, I accept risk. Or, notice how I didn't say defer in any of those 4 options. You know what defer is? It's fancy accept. Notes, lots of notes. As security professionals, I hope you have Google Keep, you have OneNote, you have a notebook, you have Excel, I don't care what. You should be making notes all the time and referencing notes all the time on the things that you're doing that will give you success, give your company success, and also save your butt. When somebody says, yeah, we did get popped. Techniques for sanity. Follow the energy. Why do we put, in this order, people, processes, and technology? Why is that the order? Alphabetical? It is. So often as technologists, we want to play with things. We want to touch the keyboard. We want to, get the new tool. The new tool will solve our problems, says the vendor. I'm not hacking on the vendors downstairs. They're cool. But we want the new tool. We want the new toy. But yet we never get to the point. We're always embattled with so much information. We never get to actually hone our processes to take care of the people or even have the right people doing the right things. Focus on the people first. This is a thing that we're talking about more and more in security these days. People first security. Prioritize. And I talk about this a lot during incident response conversations too. What's important now? What's in your control? If the risk that you're addressing is not important now, and if you ever see anything from Dragos, they have it's a 3-step process: do now, do next, do never. I'm really challenged with the do never part because when a lot of those IT people who are already burned out hear do never, they actually cross it off their list and they will weaponize that against you later. Be careful with do never. Do now, do next. Because we can't just drop a 3-ring binder full of finding on someone and say, fix this. We have to help them prioritize. What's important now? What's in your control? If you're doing something, red teaming, if you're doing security research and you find something that cannot be solved by you, how much of that are you personally going to accept? What are you going to put at stake? Thomas Dang, member of Legislative Assembly in Alberta, was willing to put his career on the line for a vulnerability that he was reporting in a COVID-19 portal that contained the personal, private information of millions of Albertans. And it cost him his seat. It cost him, I think, $60,000 in fines personally. He was willing to put himself on the line. We have to decide how much we're willing to put ourselves on the line. In a lot of cases, I do my best to find the person in the organization who can actually make that decision about risk and what we want to do about it. Was it $7,500? Yeah. Oh, he got off cheap. Yeah. Well, I don't have $7,500 in free credit right now either. Ugh, never mind. I got to get my expenses done. I'm not a political guy. I don't like politics. Thank you, Steve. My friends, love is better than anger, hope is better than fear, optimism is better than despair. So let us be loving, hopeful, and optimistic. We'll change the world. So Jack Layton passed away from cancer a few years back. I don't really know much about his political career, but this came up because the anniversary of his death was just last week, and I had decided I needed to put a bunch of quotes in here. So here's mine. My friends, we are cybersecurity. I don't care if you're red team, blue team, IT, business, you just snuck in for some free snacks. We are cybersecurity. When we act with partnership and purpose, we'll have our impact or influence, and we will change the world. Thoughts, anger, angst? Anyone want to wrestle? I kind of want to. Where did he go? I want to see if the Mohawk would survive a wrestle. No? Renderman is awesome. I encourage you to give Renderman a hug, and don't touch his hair. It's not cool. I have hair envy. That's it for me. Any questions, any thoughts, any conversation? Spark any interest? What's up, Arnold? I like Arnold. He answered all my questions.
I see a lot of your questions are encompassed in zero trust. Where do you see zero trust as an overall, I guess, something people should look at, learn, and practice?
If you go down and talk to the Fortinet dudes, they will tell you that they've been saying this particular line item for quite a long time. Identity is the new perimeter. They're kind of right. Right? And the more I've been able to spend time in larger organizations, the more we have less control over our trust zones. Right? We can set up trust zones and enclaves and all sorts of things like that. And so zero trust becomes very important. For those of you who are unfamiliar with zero trust, you're essentially re-authenticating your user at every access control point that we want to make access to something, whether it's high sensitivity, low sensitivity, data or systems, whatever. Identity is the new perimeter. As recently as 3 weeks ago, I was working with a company and we successfully fought off a Russian APT who was making intrusion into their environment because we were monitoring identity. So absolutely, zero trust is worthy of knowledge. The challenge is there is a journey to get to zero trust. I had a conversation with a government official who said, Adam, we need help setting up our first risk register, and then we want zero trust. I don't think that's going to happen. Like there's stuff that has to happen on that journey. So well planned. I think that yeah, we need to have our endpoints. We need to understand our endpoints. We need to understand our sensitive data. And moving a little bit beyond that, we definitely have to be paying more attention to our identities that are operating, accessing information, and how. That's awesome. Thank you, Arnold. Any other questions? We got one. We got time for one in the back.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Adam. We always talk about people are the weakest part in this equation. What about technology? We recently had a CrowdStrike thing, and we are seeing a lot of technologies issues. What is your thought on that?
Brilliant, brilliant question. Thank you for that. The CrowdStrike thing was really cool in that it identified, once again, how a single technology in our environment can cease operations. Holy crap, right? That was a big holy crap moment. Not so bad for those of us in the West because by the time we all woke up, most of the problems have been solved and we just had to, you know, kind of do a reboot of a couple of no. Continuity of operations. This is where I keep on preaching. Cybersecurity should be this great bridge between business objectives and the technology that serves it. There is no job function anywhere in the world anymore. Okay, maybe in certain places of the world. But in North America, there is no job function anywhere in the world that does not rely on technology anymore. So continuity of operations means that we have to be prepared to operate the business even if our technology fails us. We can't always have, there may always be, like, what if Microsoft fails? If Microsoft 365 went away, not saying it would, what kind of impact would that have on us? So I encourage you, and I love tabletops for exactly this situation, identify those key risk areas in your business. Ask hard questions like that. What if this technology were to go away? What would that do to our business? And then find a way to respond. And it leads to some very uncomfortable conversations. It leads to a whole lot of people saying, yeah, I don't actually care. And remember what I said about notes? Lots and lots of notes. Back to you. Thank you all very much. Enjoy your time. Come find me, have chats. Come play with my Flipper Zero and my Proxmark. Ooh, I'll give you NFC tags if you want. I can't throw. Thank you so much.